Estimation can also be used when multiplying decimals. Let's think. 1/10 as a fraction times 1/10 as a fraction equals 1/100th. So 1/10 as a decimal times 1/10 as a decimal equals 1/100th also. This is the reason you can simply count the number of place values behind the decimal in your problem and then place the decimal that same number of places from the left in your decimal answer. So, sounds a little confusing, but let's look at these examples. First, we're going to estimate to make sure that our answer is reasonable. 5 7/10, we are going to try front end estimation first. 5 7/10, I'm going to round to 6. 6 2/10, I'm also going to round to 6. 6 times 6 is 36. This tells us that our answer should be somewhere around 36. Let's do the actual numbers now. First, multiply as if the decimals weren't there. 57 times 62, walking through the multiplication. 2 times 7 is 14. Write down the 4, carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10. Add the 1, you get 11. That's where 114 comes from. Then put a 0 down as a placeholder, and you're going to take 6 times 7, then 6 times 5, which gives us 3,420. Add the two rows together, 3,534. That is nowhere near 36, but we haven't put the decimal in yet. So our next step is to identify how many place values are actually in the decimals. The 7 is one place value in the decimals, and the 2 is another. We have one place value behind each decimal point. So there are 2 places. So we simply start from the right of our number and count 2 places over, and that is where our decimal belongs. 35 3/34 is very close to our estimate of 36, so that tells us that we placed the decimal in the correct spot. Let's try our second example. We can use front-end estimation again. We have a tens place value, so there's a 1 there, a 0 behind it. We're going to leave it as 10. However, this is where it gets tricky. 5/10, there's actually a 0 before that. But if we use a 0 there, 10 times 0 is 0. That's not going to help us figure out our estimation. But we can round that to a 1 and get 10 times 1 is 10. So we actually know our answer has to fall somewhere between the higher estimation of 10 and the lower estimation of 0. Now we can do the actual multiplication. 83 times 5. Remember, we're going to throw the decimals away and just multiply normally. This is going to get us 5,415. Next, we have to identify how many decimal place values there are. The 8 is one, the 3 is another, the 5 is another. So there are 2 places behind the first decimal point and 1 place behind the second decimal point for 3 total places we need in our answer. If we start at the right and count over 1, 2, 3, this tells us our decimal belongs between the 5 and the 4 to give us an answer of 5 415 thousandths. And 5 definitely falls between our estimate of 0 and 10, so we know that this answer is also correct and we place the decimal in the right spot. Remember that you can estimate the product first to help you determine if your answer is a reasonable answer.